guys? Welcome back to Rugged Adventures. Really happy to have you guys here today because we have another comparison between one of America's sweethearts and one of America's lesser sweethearts, so to speak. It sort of kind of falls into that that category of like the 6.5 Creedmoor or the 5.7 Rock or even sometimes the 300 Blackout, and that is the 40 cal Smith and Wesson, or the 40 Smith and Wesson. We're going to compare that today with the 45 ACP. Everyone loves this. This is multiple World War winners. This is just something that they came up with in like 1990 after the FBI's 9mm weren't really up to the task, and is just a cut down version of the 10mm cartridge, leading most people to say a 40 Smith and Wesson or a 40 short and weak because it is shorter and less powerful than the 10mm. However, when you compare these two, bullets, especially the ones that we're going to compare today, and what I like to do is always try to compare as much apples to apples as I can. And so today we are going to be using the standard 230 grain Full Metal Jacket 45 ACP. This goes about 835 or so feet per second, and according to the internets, does about 356 feet-pounds of energy at the muzzle. Whereas with this 40 cal, this is a 165 grain bullet. We're just using these Winchester target in practice, nothing fancy. According to this, the muzzle velocity is 1060, and that should get you about 412 feet-pounds if that thing will focus, which it probably won't, but you can look it up if you want, of energy at the muzzle. Again, some of these things you can say that there's better bullets for the 45 ACP. You can use plus P ammunition, but the same thing can be said for the 40, whereas you can use hotter ammunition that goes faster. Even with they have some that have lighter bullets that go much faster than the 165s or the 180s and have energy up into the high 500s. Same can be said with the 45 ACP. And then if you look at the 10mm, you are looking at a bullet that can deliver 600 to 800 feet-pounds of energy, and there's some exotic bullets out there that'll even get up to 1,000. So today we're going to do 3 tests on these things. We're going to use our 1x1x1 wood block to see what penetration these will get you. We're going to use this 1/8 piece of steel to see if these pistols can shoot through any steel at all. And then we are going to do our highly loved soda pop test, where we line up soda pop cans, Coke cans, and see how many that these can shoot through. Now, this one already has the higher energy level. It has the smaller bullet at just 11 or 10 millimeters across. This has a little bit lower energy at the muzzle. It has a bullet, a 45 ACP is 11.5 millimeters across, if that's not sacrilegious to you. And so the theory, the math is that this gun, this bullet, this cartridge should do better than this one. And that should just be the way that the math works out. Now, as far as the bodies of these things, they're about the same size. The 45 is a little bit bigger than this is a Glock 23 as far as length goes. Width, they are about the same width. There's no cameraman there, so I'm not flagging them, and these are unloaded. However, in general, you'll find 40s, I tend to find in plastic guns like this, you'll usually find that they hold around 12 to 13, depending on the frame of the gun, and that is something that was part of the 40 program, where they could fit bullets that were larger and more powerful in 9mm size guns. Whereas this, typically in its regular form, I get people telling me that, oh, you can get this mag, or you can do this, or that it's not only built in 1911. I know, but this is sort of just the stereotypical 45. So enough with me talking, let's get shooting. So first up is our 1x1x1 wood block test, and if you guys haven't seen this on the channel yet, this is simply a 2x12 that we've cut into 8 1-foot sections. It makes a nice 1x1x1 wood block that catches a lot of pistol rounds. And if you stack 2 of them in a row, it can catch a lot of rifle rounds. We are going to do age before beauty, even though a lot of people don't like Glocks. It's just something to say, really. We'll start out with 45, see how it does, and then move on to the 40. So first up, 45 ACP. And looks like we got a decent hit there. So we will move on to the 40 cal out of this Glock 23. And we'll try to put that on the other side if I can. I think we managed to do that without blowing it out the side of the block there. And we'll take a look at it. And the one thing that you guys should know about these is both of them are fairly large caliber pistols, you know, in the grand scheme of things. They do have a pretty significant amount of recoil, and it is hard, at least for me, as an average shooter, to end up getting multiple repeat rounds on target like what I shot at the beginning of the video. If you were listening closely, and you probably will, because a lot of people like to comment about any time that you make a miss, it is very hard to shoot extremely rapid fire and continuously hit one target from the 25 yards or so that we were away. We were 25 feet away from this one. Let's go take a look at what it did. So here's what we got first off. This is where our 40 hit. This is where our 45 hit. And just to give you some perspective about the size difference of the holes that these things punch, I think that is a 308 maybe, or a 6.5. This is a 6.5 Creedmoor. These are 308, these are 308 and 6.5 Creedmoors. I don't think there's any 5.56 in here at all. We start working our way through here. We are still trucking along with the 40 and the 45, but that is where the 45 stops. The 40 continues into this plate right here, all the way through it into this fourth plate, and that is also where it stops. Now, the thing that I think that a lot of folks are going to say is that the 45 didn't get a fair shot because it hit this knot on the way in. And in this case, I tend to agree with them. So let's see if we can get a cleaner shot to give the 45 the best chance possible. I think that was a pretty good one. We're going to find here that hitting that knot absolutely wrecked the 45 the first time around. So again, we got the 40 up here, the 45, and this is our new 45 hole. And again, just the size of that thing is ridiculous. The size of this just does so much damage. Coming here to the second one, 40, 45. This is our 45 from the knot. It blasts right through that. As you can see, the first one is not there anymore, but this is where we had our clean hit with the 45. The 40, they are still going. And then this is where they both stop, and they are so close. You can see easily that the 45 bullet is right there, right at the top of the wood. The 40 is buried in there somewhere. I tried digging it out with a screw that I had. I took this one out. I was not able to really even see it. It doesn't come out the sides, it doesn't come out the back. The back here is a little fractured, so I am going to bet that it is somewhere in this area right here. And with that, the 40 just by a nose takes the 45. I did expect actually for it to go a little bit farther because it is, you know, 1.5 millimeters smaller with more energy and more muzzle velocity, but that 45 just bored straight through to this one. The 40 is almost through this entire board for a very, very narrow win for the 40 in this woodblock test. Let's see how it does against steel, if either one of these can go through steel, and then we will get to the Coke can test. So this next test is the steel test. I really like doing steel, kind of simulates armor to some degree. This is 1/8. We know that these things are not going to go through 1/4 inch. Some of the rifle rounds even have trouble. Some of the like 300 blackout, the subsonics, even some of the supersonics out of smaller barrels have trouble going through that. We will see if a 40 or 45 can make it through this 1/8 inch steel. We're going to switch it up a little bit, give the 40 the first dibs, and see how it goes. So first up, the 40 caliber out of the Glock 23, with having the higher energy bullet that's smaller. We should see this as having an advantage, but the 45 did win 2 world wars, so never count it out. And it doesn't look like that went through. So even this thin little 1/8 piece of steel, and again, this is just carbon steel, this isn't AR 500 or anything, was enough to stop a 40 cal from about 25 feet. Let's go back up, see if the 45 does any better. Now for the big dog 45, see if it can outdo this tiny little 40 short and weak. Doesn't look any better. So I ended up hitting it at about the same spot. As you can see, this is the 40, this is the 45, a little bit bigger dimple there. This one's a little bit deeper. The 40 is a little bit deeper. The bulge may be a little bit less, you know, even though that this was already a stressed piece of steel. For this one, I'm going to call it a draw. I think the 40 may have dented it a little bit more, but neither of them went through. And, you know, it's only 1/8 of an inch of steel. So, you know, that's really not great on either one. But, you know, pistols really aren't designed for armor or steel. So a draw on this one. So this is definitively the test of any weapon. As a matter of fact, This is the test that Tier 1 operators use to determine which weapons they take into combat. This is the soda pop test, where we line up a whole dozen of these delicious Sam's Cola soda pops, Cokes, soft drinks, whatever you want to call them, and see which one that the gun can get through the best, how many it can get through, how many it punctures, etc. And it's kind of like a lot of fun, and it's sort of silly, so you know, get over it if you don't particularly like this test. We're gonna go with the 45 again first, and let's see which one pops more pop. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. So like I said, this is a very scientific test. As a matter of fact, when they first coined the phrase trust the science, this is what they were talking about. They were referring to this test in particular. So first off, our 45 ACP versus 12 super delicious Sam's Colas. We'll see which one goes through more. If I can get right at the right angle. And that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. It went that way this time. So what's nice is the bullet holes that we've put in here in this table allow it to self-drain. So that's a feature that we didn't expect. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. So it only got through 6 and really only moved the first 5 or so, right? Or the first 6. The rest of them look like they've been pretty much blown to bits. There doesn't look like there's any of them that just ran into each other and, you know, started leaking. This one here, yeah, that one's blown out. So we'll reset and we'll see if the 40 gets through any more than the first 6. Let's go ahead and settle the science on this one. 40, Glock 23, and we'll see if I can put it on target. I mean, we're really close, so it shouldn't be a problem, but these striker fire weapons, they tend to pull with me. So here we go. And it looks like we got a pretty solid hit on those. Definitely more cans down than the 45. Again, the self-draining table is pretty sweet. That was, you know, an unintentional addition, but it's working out nicely. We only have 2 left. That means that it took out 10 of them. At least we think that it took out 10 of them. When we look here at all these cans, I probably should have picked up the ones that were the 45s. They all look like they were turned inside out and just simply eviscerated. There's one over there that may be from a different test, but these are all blown wide open. They didn't just run into each other and just split and start fizzing everywhere. And so for this particular test, the 40 came out by far the winner. Went through 4 more than the 45. And, you know, granted, this is just one test. That's the way it's been with all of these. However, the 40 went a little bit further into the wood block test. It gave it a win there. The 40 and the 45 were about equal in our 1/8 carbon steel penetration test. So we called that a draw, even though I think that the 40 did go just a little bit further through, but neither of them penetrated. So, you know, it is what it is. On this one, the 40 took out 4 more of those than it did than the 45 did, and that makes a lot of sense because the 40 is, you know, 1.5 millimeters smaller in diameter. It's going faster, it has more energy, so it should be able to stay stabilized and punch through more of those than the 45 would. Now granted, the ones in the front with the 45 I'm sure got blown to smithereens because that is just a gigantic bullet, as we saw on the wood block test there. And then of course there's always folks who are going to say, but if you just use this ammo that's hotter for the 45, or if you just use this ammo for the 40, or, you know, what do hollow points do, what does this, that, and the other thing do? And the purpose of these tests is, for one, to have a good time. Can't stress that enough. So if you are having a good time, subscribe, hit the like button. But it is to try to compare them as apples to apples as is possible within the budget constraints that we have. Sometimes we don't get exactly the same barrel, sometimes we don't get exactly the same gun, but we do try to stay as close as we can. Now, you know, as far as the guns themselves, they both have a pretty significant amount of recoil, which isn't a big deal. However, you know, your follow-up shots are a little bit harder to get versus something like a 9mm or even like a 380 if you want a really small caliber. But the biggest difference in as far as the cartridge versus cartridge in the gun is that typically with the 40 Smith and Wesson, you are going to be able to fit more bullets into any given gun than a 45, simply because the size of them is much smaller. Now granted, there are different guns that shoot 40. Glock makes or 45. Glock makes a 45. Everyone makes a 45. Everyone, including, you know, Thompson submachine guns and such. But in general, apples to apples, you're going to be able to fit more 40 where you can a 45, and you're going to get a cartridge that is more powerful and has it's a smaller bullet. So if you need to punch through something, it is going to do a better job of that. However, that's not to put down the 45. It is an absolute beast. One of my favorite calibers. I'm sure one of your favorite calibers out there. So you guys, if you haven't yet, subscribe down below, hit the like button. I appreciate you hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.